A $10 donation on a recurring basis to a candidate at the end of a year is $120. Candidates, sitting delegates, incumbents, does $120 matter to you? Raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay? So I'm going to ask you to commit to part with a cup of coffee for the candidate of your choice. Once a month for the next year. And if you can do more than that, please do more than that. I know we stand up here every year and we kind of say our lives depend on it. But I was 12 when Roe v. Wade passed. I didn't really understand. But I went to an all-girls school and suddenly all of the students around me were cheering. And I didn't understand that when I was assaulted at 19, if I got pregnant, I wouldn't have been able to be okay. I didn't get pregnant, but I knew I didn't have to worry about that part. Right? This is about the lives women lead. And your job when you leave here today is to explain where you were and why you were here and what you're going to do about it. Are we all in to win?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Juli one more time. Good morning. I am Delegate King, and I have the pleasure, thank you. I have the pleasure of representing the 2nd District, Prince William, and Stafford County. And let me tell you, when we had 17 days to keep this seat in the Democratic majority, Network Nova and all of the people in this room came out, walked, knocked, made calls, wrote letters, postcards. So I just want to say thank you for being all in to win. Now, I have an important job, and one of them I'm going to keep Catherine in my sight so she makes sure, because she knows I like to talk. But you know what I like to do more than talk? I like to fight.
Here you go.
So let me tell you, I love peace. Having a peaceful life and going along, living on Easy Street would be great. But when you come for my daughters, when you come for my sisters, when you come for women in need, I will have my boxing gloves ready for you every single time. There are people who are tired. We are tired of fighting the same fight, generation after generation. But guess what? When you look at the young people in this room, they need us to once again put our shoes on, strap them up, put our boxing gloves on, and give another L to people like Glenn Youngkin, Clarence Thomas, and his merry band of deplorables. As the first generation of women in my family who had the choice to decide when and where I would become a mother, I implore you to fight to ensure that my daughters, your daughters, the women in our community continue to have a Commonwealth of Virginia that lets them decide when they have children. And when we talk about fighting, I have the great pleasure to introduce someone who is no stranger to a fight. I have the great pleasure of also living in the new 7th District. And I get to introduce Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. To go out, knock doors in my community, talk to people about her, tell people why I support her, is because from the very first moment that we spoke, she made it clear that she is a leader who listens She is a leader who is unafraid to go out and say the things that need to be said and have the votes to back it up. She is the real deal. So I introduce to you Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger.
Thank you, Delegate King. I appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Well, I want to say thank you for being here. And on the drive here, I was on 95, and there was this woman, this young woman, who was rocking out in her car. All by herself, she was singing, she was hand moving. And for a minute I smiled because this woman was clearly filled with joy and just really in the moment. And then this sort of feeling sunk over me where I thought, does she know how today is different than yesterday? Does she know that a whole array of rights are on the line? Does she know that if she has an ectopic pregnancy that could threaten her life in many states, she couldn't get the health care that she needs? Does she know that her choices are now different? Does she know that in the written decisions there's clear assaults on privacy and due process? Does she know that Obergefell has a target on it, that Griswold has a target on it, that Lawrence has a target on it, and that in fact even Loving v. Virginia has a target on it? Does she know those things? And I came to the conclusion as I thought through this, and I went from a moment of like levity and joy to a deep, dark, sad moment. I thought, it doesn't matter, because I know it. And every person I'm going to be with this morning knows it. And every person that I will spend time with today knows it. And every person we will encounter at this conference and anybody who's door knocking anywhere this weekend, you not only know it, but you want to make sure that that woman and her joy and the levity she feels on a nice Saturday morning is protected. And so I want to say thank you. Because I know it is tiring, right? We work for the ERA, and we thank you to all of the ERA people and my mother's sponsor concerts. Okay, I got that off the table. We worked, and we saw success in Virginia, and Virginia was this state that we held up, right? But there's more work to do. And we will win. It comes down to that. And so when I thought of all of the things that I could talk about today, I just want to pull it down to one primary goal. Fighting, working, winning is what matters. Because the policies that we advocate, the policies that help people, the policies that create opportunity, the policies that respect our communities and our kids and the future of every person across the Commonwealth of Virginia, that's what we advocate for. Helping people and families and kids and small businesses and communities, recognizing the importance and the dignity and the value of every person who makes our country an extraordinary place. That's what we work for. Those are the people that we work for. And so, I know that there's lots of emotions, and I know that many people felt lots of emotions this past couple of days. But I believe that in this long and sort of crazy arc that we are on in the Commonwealth and in the country, we will win because there is literally no other acceptable option.
Right.
And we will win because we believe in people, community, and country. And we will win because this is how you all choose to spend your Saturday morning. And when you follow it up and you are spending, I think it was, where's Juli? the coffee that you all are now not going to buy and direct towards candidates. And the DC media market is a very expensive one, so I would recommend going with like a venti frappuccino, extra shot, maybe the expensive milk substitute, all of those things, when you're doing your calculations. That's why we'll win. And it is about gutting it out, working harder, believing more, and ensuring that every person who says, you know, I'm busy, I got kids, I got a job, I got a long commute, I'm not sure what's happening in politics. And in fact, everybody's always fighting and arguing, and I don't know my place in it. It is up to us to say, politics matters because everything is political. Yeah. Politics matters because where your kids go to school is political. Whether they get school lunch is political. Where a road is political. Whether there are federal investments in repairing roads and bridges is political. Whether we recognize that broadband connectivity to our rural communities or our underserved and under-resourced communities is political. And so politics matters to all of us because everything comes down to the votes that I make, that they make. There's a number of other state legislators in the office or in the room, and local school board, board of supervisors, local town mayors, city mayors, across the board, your House of Delegates and State Senate. So I want to say I am so grateful because you all know how important the work is. And in June of 2020, I was on a conference call with our caucus, and the late John Lewis spoke. And if you have ever heard me quote this, I do not apologize because you will likely hear it again. The late John Lewis spoke, and it was shortly before he passed away. And everyone just expressed a lot of sadness. It was June 2020, COVID was raging, George Floyd had just been murdered, everything felt like an upheaval. And he said in all his time in the civil rights movement, he had never seen as much engagement. He talked about the people who were advocating for change and progress. He talked about the fact that they were people of all ages and all races and all religions, that people were coming together, and he expressed hope in what he was seeing. And then he said the words that I will never forget, and just in case I would, I wrote them down so I frequently double check. He said, be brave. And when John Lewis tells you to be brave, you say if a man can be beaten and risk his life for the things he believes in, the ability to vote, then I can be brave. I can knock on a door. I can make a phone call. I can stand in front of a room and nervously say, I am putting my name on a ballot for something I believe in. So be brave. Knock on that door. Make that phone call. Have a conversation in the grocery store. Wear a pin in public and make everything political. And he said, be brave. Don't get weary. So don't get weary on the days when it feels like the world is crashing down, on the days when you worry about what might be ahead. Don't get weary. Remember that we are doing this for our community. We are doing this for that young woman in the car rocking out on a Saturday morning. We are doing it for our kids and our grandkids and people we will never meet. And then he said, let's continue to work. And so that is a call from him that I keep in my heart, that I relay to you. Be brave. Do not get weary. And let's continue to work. And when we do that, we will win because we are all in to win.
Let's give her another round of applause. We have to go out and do everything we can to ensure that this woman, this powerhouse, this powerful voice stays in Congress. So please, there's a table. Oh, we gotta get a photo.
Yeah, can you keep speaking?
Okay. So please, before you leave today, there is a table. Wave your hand. There's a table where you can sign up to volunteer. You can come down to the 7 and help us get her reelected.
Looking good. Let's get a picture.
To have Gerry Connolly as my representative, I regret to inform you that I will now be on your ballot in November.
Well, I can't help myself. I want to say, look what the cat dragged in. A good old Irish fighter from CD11, Congressman Gerry Connolly. Real quick, Dave, get up. We're going to keep the clock, but I want to make sure we have everybody in the district. And then we're going to go back. Come on. Who asked? Rip. Okay. And I'm going to keep talking. I want to say thank you again to Congressman Connolly. He's a big supporter of our work. We are in his district, and then he wasn't going to be able to come, and I was sad. And I'm like, well, just make sure you give me your money. Because I'm Italian and he's Irish, and that works out. So thank that, and so we're glad you're able to come. So thank you for that.
Wait, District 11 in the house.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right. Okay, good. Now we have to send off our Congresswoman Spanberger. So we're going to give her a big round of applause.
What a wonderful, wonderful surprise. And just so you know, Abigail, she was talking about me. I said, I'm going to lose Gerry Connolly as my congressman. But I'm so grateful to have a new congresswoman, phenomenal congresswoman. Now, so I am never, Elizabeth Bennett Parker. Can we please give a warm welcome to my colleague, Elizabeth Bennett Parker. And so I have the privilege of not doing this work alone, and I want to ask you to take a moment with me and transport yourself back 15 years. Close your eyes and imagine Prince William County and the delegation where there was no representation of people of color. No representation of diverse women. And now, I get to introduce to you one of the most diverse delegations in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and two powerhouse members of our delegation who are fighting every day for our children, for our environment, for women to have the right to do what they decide with their bodies. I get to introduce my two colleagues. First, we have, as we say at my house, the Latina Hammer, Delegate Elizabeth is a fighter. She is a champion. She is someone who has worked so hard for working families to ensure that unions and people have the right to organize and to fight for a living wage, to fight for themselves, to lift up their families. So let's give it up again for the Latina Hammer. And one of our newest members, who is what I like to say a quiet storm of energy, of ideas, of hard work. She knows not just how to get things done, but she is not afraid to fight to get them done now. She is not waiting. She is the change that we have been waiting for. Delegate Briana Sewell. A small part of the powerhouses of Prince William County, but we are in it to win it and fighting for all Virginians. So I pass it on to my colleagues.
Well, good morning. I'm just going to take 30 seconds of privilege because this is an important story to share. I'm Delegate Elizabeth Guzman, and I proudly represent the 31st District, which includes Prince William County, but also Fauquier County, and I've seen some Fauquier faces in the room. So thank you so much for coming here today. So as we are knocking on doors for Abigail, right, we're challenging ourselves, we're all in to win it. So I go and tell people on the 11th, well, Gerry Connolly is no longer your congressman. Now we have Abigail Spanberger, and they are like, no, you're lying. And I'm like, but these people love Gerry so much in the 11th that is part of Prince William County that they don't stop there. On Monday, they call his office and verify if I was saying the truth or not. So I think that is very good to know on how much help do we need in Prince William County. But it's an honor for me to be here, to be elected as the first Latina immigrant to the Virginia Assembly. And let's be clear that there are not workers' rights without reproductive rights. And I want to also set the record straight because there is another depicable member who's going to be the opponent for Abigail Spanberger, who's spreading lies about the Latinos across the Commonwealth. But let me tell you that 60% of Latinos voted for President Biden. And 66% of Latinos voted for Terry McAuliffe. So Latinos, we are in for Abigail Spanberger, and we're going to work really hard to elect her. In Virginia, we have great accomplishments. I was proud to pass a legislation that included collective bargaining. So finally, public sector employees have a voice at the table. And what I am more proud is that this law is not unique to Northern Virginia. We have seen happening in Central Virginia, Southwest Virginia, even Virginia Beach, workers are getting organized. So I was proud to carry that legislation that will empower working families, that will allow public sector employees to be included in the decision-making process. And I would have not been able to do that without the support of my colleagues in the House of Delegates and the members of the State Senate as well. But there's still so much to do. We hope we could have accomplished everything. And as I heard Governor Youngkin yesterday that he's trying to ban abortion at 50 weeks because he's pro-life, well, I have a message for him. If we are pro-life, why don't we start passing legislation to provide paid sick leave to the 1.2 million Virginians that are out there dying because they have to choose between a paycheck and a healthcare? If we are pro-life, why don't we pass common gun sense reform because we are sick and tired of losing lives in schools as well? We are pro-life, let's pass affordable healthcare so people doesn't have to choose between their healthcare and a job because healthcare is a human right. If we are pro-life, let's pass affordable housing because we have Virginians that their leases have increased at 50% and they are going to be homeless. So we are all in it to be pro-life with him and we can't wait for this upcoming legislation. So thank you so much.
To start by having each of you give yourselves a round of applause. We are here today after a tough day yesterday. It was not a happy Friday, and we all feel gutted. We are angry. We are feeling every range of emotions. But you each need to give yourselves a round of applause because we are here living out our values and ensuring that our Commonwealth does the same to protect each and every Virginian, whether they're asking for it or not. So give yourselves a round of applause. I want to take this moment to acknowledge my colleague in the back. As you can see, Democrats traveled all across the Commonwealth to be here with you in Northern Virginia today. And that includes my dear friend, Sally Hudson, in the back, who traveled all the way from Charlottesville. So we recognize that the Women's Summit is coordinated by Network Nova. And what they have built is a room full of trust. And they have built forth a room full of champions who are fighting for every issue. So let's give them a round of applause. We wouldn't be in this position where we can fight for progress and where we can fight for change if it wasn't for three fantastic women and all who have volunteered to join them. But I'm here today to remind you of what is at stake. We all saw what happened yesterday. But we can't remember that that is not our only fight right now. We need everyone to turn out in November, no matter the issue. And we have seen the tactics of right-wing party to come and try to divide us by making us single-issue voters. Whether they try to say that parents didn't have rights in our education, whether they are simply saying that people shouldn't have seats at the table, we're not buying into it, and we won't be divided. As a member of the Education Committee at the House, along with my dear colleague, Delegate Guzman, we witnessed every tactic under the sun. That they tried to defund our public school system, that they tried to turn and pit communities against each other, whether they were talking about our HBCUs and DACA recipients versus funding everyone and ensuring that we all had a seat at the table. So between now and November, don't forget that we are all in this together. Don't allow anyone to divide us. And recognize that everyone can have a seat at the table and eat too. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic back over to Catherine to ensure that we stay on time. But it is a pleasure to be here in this fight with you and know that you have champions in the General Assembly who are going to get this done. But first, let's get it done this November.
All right.
And I'm going to turn the microphone over to my dear colleague, Dan Helmer.
Here he is.
Who's been in this fight quite some time.
And I want to say a few words, just a second. Dan Helmer is not, his district's not far from here, but eventually I think you're redistricted in some way. But I invited Dan. We were going to speak a lot about truth and loyalty and service. He served our country in Iraq and also Afghanistan. And I'm just so proud to knock doors for him. He works really hard, and he's a bold leader. And that's what we need now, is bold leadership. Thank you, Dan Helmer, for your service. And thank you for being here today. And bring it. Let's get all in to win, my friend.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you for that introduction. And thank you all for taking a Saturday morning to come out here after what happened this week. Because all of us could be agonizing in our beds today. And instead, you're out here organizing. And that is a real credit to the work you've put in Virginia, the work you're going to continue to put, and the path that we are going to need to retake our majority, not for 2 years, but for 50.
Oh, yeah.
Runs right through this way. We were at a Democratic retreat. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, get on the
All right.
mic. There you go.
All right. We were at a Democratic retreat this week where we were talking about what it's going to take to win. And I actually brought my family out there. And this decision was released. My wife and I drove separately. I had to go to work yesterday. And so she was driving, so I knew she didn't see the news. I called her and told her what had happened with Roe v. Wade being overturned. She pauses for a second. And then the next thing I heard her say is, "No, I'm not exercising right now." She's yelling at her watch. Because we had just gone off because her heart was racing. And I know I'm not exercising right now. I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm angry too. I'm one of the few men that's spoken on the floor of the House of Delegates about how important choice is, not just to my wife, not just to the women in my life, but to me personally. After our second son was born, my wife Karen was told that if she got pregnant again, she could die. And at the time, my delegate had voted to criminalize abortion. They voted to mandate that women seeking an abortion had an unnecessary transvaginal ultrasound. He had voted even to enable the state to prohibit some forms of birth control. want to live in a commonwealth where those were the people who were governing our decisions. Neither did many of you. So we knocked on thousands, hundreds of thousands of doors. And we had conversations with our neighbors to discuss a vision for our commonwealth where women, not Richmond politicians, made their own decisions about what they could do with their own bodies. Where teachers, like my wife too, don't have to worry about whether today's the day there's a shooter in their school. Where Virginians have the right to organize, to have a job that means they can live with dignity and put food on the table. In carrying that vision through those conversations with our neighbors, we unseated a 17-year incumbent in a district that had never been held by them. That's the power of what all of you in this room can do when we work together, when we get out and have those conversations, when we write those postcards, when we give a cup of coffee. Although in my case, my wife says I can give dessert. That's what we can do. And look at what we did in the 2 years that we had the majority. We legalized marijuana. We got rid of the trap laws that mandated that women receive misinformation when making their own personal health care decisions. We put in 7 bills that changed the landscape for gun violence prevention in Virginia. Universal background check, gun crime laws. We have seen the power of what we can do when we fight together. But we've also seen what can happen when we lose sight of not just taking power, but holding on to it and using it on behalf of every single Virginian. We saw what happened when we didn't organize sufficiently in places like Virginia Beach. We saw what happened when we kept money behind in these $1 million races, thinking, oh, we'll use it next time. We saw what happened when people put their foot on the scales and didn't let the process play out like it should. Well, never again. We are going to fight. We are going to fight because this governor just doesn't get it. Doesn't get it at all. When he talks about banning abortion, he's never had to make that choice. If his family has a fetus with an abnormality so severe that there's no chance of survival, that's going to get taken care of. He can afford it. But that didn't stop him from sending down a budget amendment that would have denied that to poor women. He just doesn't get it.
Right.
He doesn't get what it's like to worry about your kid going to school. And whether today is the day that a random act of gun violence happens. But that didn't stop him from sending almost $1 million of extra money to protect his family, himself, and other members of statewide office while pulling millions from our gun violence prevention fund. He just doesn't get it.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care, and he doesn't get it.
That's true.
Across the Commonwealth, people are experiencing the terrible cost of getting a gallon of gas or the rising price of food. But Glenn Youngkin doesn't pump his own gas. He doesn't shop his own groceries. He hasn't done it for years. And yet he won't put in place a declaration of emergency to stop big oil from booking profits at the expense of poor Virginians. He just doesn't get it. But you do.
Yes.
You all do. And so what are we going to do? One, this is our state.
Yes.
Our values win a majority.
Yes.
I am tired of hearing about Virginia as a purple state. We are not purple. We are blue.
Thank you.
We are blue because we believe in a commonwealth where every family member can live in dignity no matter who they love, where they were born, or the color of their skin. We believe in a commonwealth where we don't have to worry about random acts of gun violence. We are a commonwealth where we believe women, not Glenn Youngkin, should make decisions about what they do with their own lives. So we're going to agonize and we're going to organize.
Yes.
We're going to get out there and we're going to touch every single voter on every single door so they know what's at stake. We're going to have those tough conversations to hear where we can do better. And when we are done, we're first going to re-elect the great congresswomen we elected in 2018.
Yes.
And then we're going to turn around and re-elect my amazing colleagues and a bunch more, and we're going to keep them there for the next 50 years. So I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over to Congressman Connolly, because as Catherine said, you were going to be the only dude on stage, and we needed somebody who was a good speaker. By the way, everybody else's loss was my gain. Congressman Connolly now is going to be representing me after this, and I am so excited about it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And Catherine, thank you for accommodating me. I was supposed to actually be at a funeral in Chicago and had to have oral surgery this week and couldn't go because of ear pressure. And after yesterday, I felt the one place for me today was the Women's Summit. Teddy Roosevelt gave a speech once in which he talked about how important it was to be in the arena. And he talked about the timid souls outside the arena who would criticize those with the courage to be inside the arena. You and I today need to be inside the arena. The decision yesterday by Samuel Alito is one of the most arrogant and destructive acts of the Supreme Court in American history. Essentially, he has put the court in the position of saying, the government will decide what a woman does with her body. The government will compel women to carry to term a fetus irrespective of the circumstances or the condition of the fetus. He is a demagogue in black robes. He is fostering a federalist right-wing agenda on America. In the same week that they overturned Roe, the first time a constitutional right has been rescinded in American history, they restricted Miranda rights, and they overturned a 109-year gun control law with respect to concealed handguns in New York State. I kind of felt it was my little revenge yesterday to be in the floor speaking to and voting for the first gun control bill in 30 years. I had to listen to my Republican colleagues bemoan the compromise to the Second Amendment rights that were, quote, God-given.
God with a gun. What's wrong with that?
I don't know about you, but I don't recall that over 2,000 years ago in Palestine, people possessed handguns and howitzers. I'm not sure they're God-given. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're not. But I do believe the Declaration of Independence talks about rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
Those are God-given. So we have a decision Are we going to channel our anger and our righteous indignation in a force to be reckoned with in America that in fact asserts the will of the majority? A 2-to-1 majority that says we favor abortion rights or not. Discouragement and despair are luxuries we cannot afford. Put them aside. You're entitled to them, acknowledge them, put them aside. We have to get organized. I want you to know I'm proud of the fact that in the 14 years I've been in Congress, I have a 100% pro-choice voting record. Because to me, the right of a woman to choose is self-evident.
That's right.
Not to Samuel Alito. So don't despair. We have work to do, a lot of work to do. But Virginia has proved that when we get organized, we can transform an entire community, an entire state. Our work is undone, and that's as it should be. But our mission is clear. And there has to be strong belief in the fact that we're fighting not only for ourselves, but for future generations of Virginians and Americans. And with that hope, and with that commitment, in the long run, I assure you, we will prevail. God bless you all.